Alrighty, today's video, we're going to be talking about some cards in RS to PK that I find. I almost don't want to say underrated because, like, a lot of these cards I would not feel comfortable saying are, like, viable cards. I haven't built a deck with them that I would call, like, competitively viable, like high C tier or above. Uh, but I could conceivably see somebody doing that. And then some of them are cards that I think like are used in some decks, but could have some wider applications. I kind of this is in no real order. I just kind of wanted to throw some cards together and talk about them briefly. First up, I got a Swampert EX alongside Holland Circle. So Swampert EX is in good decks. There are good decks built around this. There's Swampert Metagross, Swampert Aggron, and I think Swampert Scizor has been run before. And the idea is pretty straightforward. Energy Recycle is really good at getting metal energy onto big metal EX Pokemon. And that's something that nothing else can really do very easily. And Swampert's not even a bad attacker in its own right. Like its attack is pretty good, especially against decks that are weak to water, which usually the fire type decks are. Excuse me. Um, but specifically, building it alongside Holland Circle seems like it could be interesting. Holland Circle Lock is a known deck. I don't think it's especially viable. Although I think that it has potential. I think like there's a world where it's like a C tier deck, and maybe higher. But that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to like a fairly straightforward Swampert plus other dude deck, but you just rely on cards like Holland Circle and like fossils in order to hide behind that while you are using energy recycle. And I know that Aggron Swampert plays fossils, and it also plays Aerodactyl EX. But that's I think something going even further in that direction could be interesting. And then we have Salamence from Dragon, the hollow one. I have toyed around with this card, and I think that if you're playing any sort of Salamence EX deck, that you should include one. Since the EX gets everything free retreat, you can promote Salamence after a KO and Dragon Wind and gust something up. Um, but what I'm more referring to with I think it being overlooked is I think that having a virtually conditionless POW that you can use, and Salamence EX like could facilitate that as well. I mean, Salamence EX has some properties that are very like desirable. It makes everything have free retreat, and it snipes for 40, which is not bad. Um, but I haven't really seen anybody build like a lock deck with this Salamence. I guess at like if you're building a lock deck, I guess like recurring POW is a lot of the time better. But I feel like there's probably some sort of niche where you can use Salamence more like aggressively and try to like lock in a different circumstance. I don't know. I haven't really built with it a whole lot. I built with it with another card on this list, but I couldn't really get anything going with that. Um, but yeah, I think Salamence has some kind of potential. And Breloom, nothing too much to say here. I don't think Breloom is like great or anything, but the fact that turn two you can hit for 20, and poison something fairly easily. I mean, if as long as you're running multi or grass or DRE, it should be pretty easy to hit that. And then hustle punch, doing 70 when it starts out. 70 for three on a stage one non EX is pretty good, honestly. Of course, it does have that downside where next turn it's only doing 50. Um, so you can't use it like concurrently to take out Dark Tyranitar, for example, but you can kind of make your plays. You can play around that, I think. Like you can leaf poison and get poison damage in, and then hustle punch. I don't think that this card is good, but I think that uh, RS to PK is a format that just thrives so much on good fighting type attackers, and there's a world where like you could play this, play the Curse Stone, play the Stantler, play the Cess, and maybe you got a deck there. It hits hard as a fighting type. It's got cheap attacks, one retreat. You could do worse. Um, and then Crawdon EX. I have built the Crawdon Salamence deck, which attempts to like splash back, use Unknown E and Salamence to always lock things in the active that can't do anything. Things like Holland's Cast Form or Pidgey. But I think Crawdon, and I've also played Crawdon in my Shiftry Crawdon deck, where I think it's very good. I think that that deck is seriously like B tier in my opinion. Um, but Crawdon in other decks, I think, is worth examining. Um, Not many decks or like players are ready to play against something like Crawdon. Some players will set up their bench so that they are not crippled by Giant Stump super hard. But Crawdon is just a whole nother level. Like, it adds a lot of utility that that decks typically don't like. How would I say this? Like, the things that it does are difficult things to like replace it with. So like in a Pidgeot deck, you can splash back the Soul Rock or the Lunatone or whatever, and get access to Quick Search for that turn, for example. And against and also admin being everywhere in the format means you can splash something back and then admin it, and then it's not they can't get to it anymore, or at least it's going to be harder for them to get to it. In the Shiftry deck, I think it's particularly good. I think it kind of makes that deck tick and gives it a lot of a lot of interesting lines. But I think it has potential in other decks. Like, could you play this in like a Flygon Delta Box deck? I don't know. Maybe. Could you play it in LBS? Maybe. I mean, there's things you could play it in, but it is a pretty high retreat. It's weak to lightning. Like, it's kind of not useful in those uh, Stantler and LBS or Stantler and Rayquaza things. But it's not the worst. I think just a 1-1 line, not committing super hard to it comes up enough. Like, there's just so many applications. You can splash back the Pidgeot. You can splash back something that has rare candy. You can splash back something that they're building up with a lot of energy. Like, there's just a lot of applications, and most of the time, it's very hard to play around this card. So I think Crawdon is probably my pick for like the most underrated, underutilized card in RS to PK. Um, then I've got Team Magma's Torkoal. There are very few cards that mill in RS to PK, and Torkoal is, I believe, the only basic Pokemon that does it. I could be wrong. There might be like some EX that does it, but Torkoal has a one energy attack that does it for fairly low maintenance. on if you flip a coin and you get tails, you have to discard a fire, and it has two retreat, which is extremely annoying. But I think there is potential with this card. Um, like you can imagine playing it in Mulock, where you have four-sided their deck in such a way that next turn you can magma burn and just discard some strong card in their deck. The only problem is that in that deck, you don't really have the slots to play pure fire energy. And if you're discarding like Holland's cast form, it's kind of weird. And Mulock is also like not a super great deck. So, um, yeah, that's where I think this card has a home. Like in some sort of a lock deck, I think being able to like discard the top card of their deck has some practical use. You could also use it alongside like Dark Slowking maybe, but I don't know. That might be cooking too hard. And then we have slacking. Interestingly enough, they only created like two slackings basically because this one's a reprint of the RS, and there's also no EX. There's no slacking EX. Interesting. Kind of figured there would be, but no. Slacking EX or sorry, slacking. Its Pokebody just like shuts off your opponent's Poke powers. It's a one-sided lock on them, and its attack is not very good. I've tried messing around with playing this card with Meteor Falls because there's a Slack Off that has uh, Slack Off, which removes all damage counters and you can attack next turn. And there's a Vigoroth that has Rage. So there's like there's pre-evos that you can synergize with it, but then at that point you like have to get this up and get a stadium up, and like every deck in this format is playing stadiums or counter stadiums or windstorms or all three, and so it might not be worth it. But just like an entire one-sided lock of powers is pretty crazy. Like, I think you can just put this on a card, and it's not the worst attacker. I just haven't been able to find anything that it really goes with. And if it ever is not in the active position from like a warp point, a cyclone energy, or a POW, then their powers to get turned back on. So not probably not the best, but I haven't really seen anybody try to build with this, and I think it probably could be used somewhere. Maybe I don't know. And then I have Shift Tree EX. So, oh wait, this is the wrong Shift Tree. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I have to pull up the other Shift Tree EX. Um, this one. So Shift Tree EX obviously is a deck. There's the one with the Lickitungs that plays Crystal Beach. There's mine that plays the other Shifter EX and Crawdon EX and Team Magma's Hideout. And I think those are both like good decks in some regards. But what I'm referring to with this placement is running it with just like a 101 line or a 111 line. Probably a 101 line. And just having it in play and having a single Dark Eyes just like looming over your opponent. Because when you think about it, like, okay, a lot of the decks that use powers that are good decks, they'll only really use like a couple. They'll be pretty sparing with them. Like if a deck's playing like Firo, for example, sure it would be nice to be able to like do a lot of damage to them with Dark Eyes whenever they use their Poke Power. But realistically, like after they use it a couple times to start out with, they probably have gotten like all the utility they need from it. Or you think about like Pidgeot, like yeah, if you've got two Shiftry up, it becomes kind of annoying for them to quick search, but they can kind of play around that. They can like play in a way that where they're aware that that's going to happen. Maybe even set up a second Pidgeot. Um, there's ways to play around it. Or like bomb decks, they're not bothered by dark eyes at all. So having like four shiftry out doesn't do anything. But you think about a deck like Sceptile or Dragtrode, and these decks are using powers left and right. I mean, they're like using powers every turn, multiple times a turn. I mean, I've seen Dragtro players Dark Trance fucking like 15 times in a turn, which the Dragtro player classic. But one sec. Excuse me. Um, or something like LBS. You know, is going to be using Energy Rain a bunch of times over the course of a game. And if every time you're basically having to put 3 damage counters on the board, that's going to add up. So just playing Shiftry as a tech option, specifically to hedge your bets against something against like specifically Dragtrode, Sceptile, LBS, some of these like stage 2 decks, I think is very interesting. I think that could be worth examining in your stage 2 deck. Um, Obviously, like a lot of them want to play Sceptile as their tech of choice, but there might be a deck where you don't want to play Sceptile. Like I could see maybe in like a Pidgeot Evolutions deck, you might play like a 101 Shiftry line, and that could just like be there, kind of, racking up this damage over turn or over time. And against Sceptile specifically as a deck, it's going to be wearing everything down, so that's going to make their Sceptile EX not as strong, and yada yada yada. So I think this card has a pretty good amount of potential. I think it could be played in other things. Um, Walrein EX as well to a lesser extent. I've tried building Walrein and it's been bad every time I've done it. I think that just fundamentally it's not good enough as a deck. It has too many problems. It has like built-in energy acceleration, and it like neither of the Walrein are like the Walrein Crush Chance or whatever, or this one are bad necessarily, but I just don't know. But this Walrein specifically, Chilling Breath is just such a crazy like effect to print on a card. Where when you play it, your opponent just can't play like any trainer cards next turn, um, which is just debilitating. I don't really know of a lock deck that could use this. Something like Ratlock. I mean, if you have stage twos in the deck, but obviously you're setting up Sceptile, and if you're not, then you can't really loop this card because you can't Brinies it back. You have to play like Shiftry and Evolutionary Fan and return it to and then you're just. I mean, that's like 10,000 moving parts to like lock down trainer cards, which is an extremely strong effect, but I don't know. For a stage 2, it's a lot to ask. But I don't know. Maybe there is a home for Walraniacs somewhere in some kind of like Pidgeot promo lock deck. Um, I don't know. It could be something there. And then I've got the mimes. So I already play these. I play this one, the magical odds one in Gardevoir, because it helps against Bayonet and it helps against Rayquaza EX, and it also like it does some niche stuff too. Like you don't get damaged by Electrode EX at all, which can come up. Um, and then the other one I play in Ratlock because it doesn't get damaged by uh, Disconnect or Deafen, and it also like matches up pretty well against Arcanine. They can't damage you on the bench, and they can't flame swirl you. So both of these cards, they have very limited things that they can do in the format. They like the range of targets that they hit is like decently broad, but it's just like a very specific things. So like I play the odds one in Gardevoir because that deck specifically can struggle against Rayler, against Camler and against Bayonet. So you're specifically targeting those exact decks with the odds Mr. Mime. And it's kind of rare for your deck to struggle against like exactly those things. And there's not like a better thing you can do to play around that. Um, I'm still trying to figure out if this one's even worth playing, but it's tested okay for me so far. But I think these two, like, I don't think anybody else has considered playing these cards really, and I think that they have enough potential utility that you might want to consider them in your deck. Um, and oh, this one also does pretty well against LBS. As long, well, actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't prevent 200. Sorry, it would do well against LBS if you could prevent 200, but you can't. Um, and the last among the Pokemon here is Umbreon EX, which I just think it's crazy that there's like a card that's a stage one that's pretty accessible that has a good attack too, and it just has a gust effect, and it's like only really played in like dedicated evolution decks and like Kingdra, I guess. But it could fit in other things. It does kind of hate this like new Sceptile EX meta, but uh, that notwithstanding, I mean it's a gust effect. It's really good. You also don't like Battle Frontier, but Battle Frontier is pretty unpopular. And the attack is good. I mean, Black Cry can just lock a Pidgeot in place. It can lock just I mean it can lock anything in place, and it's colorless to use it. So I don't really know what you would slot this in. I feel like a lot of the times the two slots to play it, you kind of rather just play like two pals or like start on your four reversals, but there's probably a home for this. I think the card is good enough and has potential. And the other evolutions definitely have niches too. Jolteon is definitely good. But excuse me. Yeah, Umbreon could maybe find a home in something else. Holland Circle, I already kind of mentioned. Potion, also in this category is Oran Berry and Citrus Berry. Just cards that like just heal you and just heal you a little bit. It is so often in RS to PK where like my entire game plan from my opening hand to seeing my opponent's like opening and deck where I am saying, okay, I'm going to do this much damage to this thing, which means that it puts it in range of this thing, and then so I'm totally fine with this thing getting KO'd because then my other guy is going to come in and it's going to KO them, and then my backup attacker is going to be set up for the next turn, so then I can do something to their next active with this thing, and then when it gets KO'd, my other guy will take it out. And so like everything is just kind of this very precise like, okay, I'm going to KO something, and then I know I played the format. I know exactly like what they're going to send in, how much damage I'm going to do, and so on and so forth. Um, like a single potion or a citrus berry or whatever can like throw this all completely out of whack. Where it, like all of a sudden, I'm having to deal with a threat where like I might have to expend like two Pokemon to take it out instead of just one. And there's not too many cards that do that, honestly. Like, most of the time, if you're having a problem that you have to deal with, um, you can play like a backup attacker or something. But it might be better to just play like a potion or two and put yourself in a position where you're not needing a backup attacker because your main attacker is able to tank one more hit than it's supposed to be able to. Um, as for what would play this, I think anything playing Pidgeot can play, or like has the potential to play this, or Citrus or Oran. Um, just being able to like quick search it out is very nice because you can you can guarantee that you get it when you need it. If you're just playing like one in, I don't know, Railer or something, it's going to be really hard to find it, and you're probably just going to like play it as soon as you see it because you don't want to lose it to admin. Um, but I think playing it in a Pidgeot deck, you could use it to just dodge a KO, and I feel like it just has like a lot of applications, uh, like just stopping things from getting KO'd to poison, like stopping your Jirachi from getting KO'd on the wrong sequence from Cursed Stone or something, so you don't have to promote something into their active. You can just let the Jirachi die or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think Potion. I don't play it in anything currently. The closest thing I might play it in is Unknown Flygon, but I think it definitely like has use and it could be played in more things. But I don't know. This one I do think is pretty high on the like could be fit into other good decks category. Um, then we have ATM Rock. This card is obviously played in like several good decks. It's played in. Well, actually, that's just a lie. It's played in Rock Lock, and it's played in some Bomb Tar lists, and I know like High Flyer likes it a lot, but there's not really too many top decks that would even want to play it that bad. Something like Railer can't use it at all. But like this card, whenever I get hit with it, is just so powerful. Like the effect is really just insane, right? I mean, you're able to devolve everything that your opponent has. The problem is that there are decks where this card is just like dead as a doornail. I mean, against Railer, it's going to do nothing at all. Against Camler, you'd be lucky for it to do anything at all. There's a lot of decks where it's just going to be a dead card. And those are like strong decks a lot of time. But there are also a lot of decks where I think it is useful. I guess the problem is that it doesn't really bail you out of too many situations, like something like a POW or like a warp point can. So, and you kind of have to like have a decent setup. You have to have, of course, the ATM rock itself, something that's evolved that has energy that isn't confused. Um, but I think that there is like, and I think most of the decks that could play this card have experimented with it. I think Camler's experimented with it. I think Ryegs has as well. But I just feel like every time this card, like I get hit with this card, it just kind of comes completely out of nowhere, and it's like, all right, now this DRE I had is gone. Something got KO'd, and now I have to like get my Pidgeot back up and running again because I lost the rare candy. And so, yeah, I think this card is pretty strong whenever I get hit with it. So maybe it could fit into other things. Um, and then last, oh wait, no, last Tropical Wind. This card is bad. This card is awful. This card is just miserably bad. But I think that there is a world where Ratlock would play a card like this. It is like so close to being usable in Ratlock, which is really funny that like one of the best decks could play like this card, which is just awful. I mean, it's so bad. I bet a lot of people watching this have not even seen this card and did not know it was legal for tournament play. But no, it's legal. You can play it. So in specifically Ratlock, you can flip. You can play it on heads. You can remove damage counters from their active and remove damage counters from your Eradicate. And in a lot of situations, that like both of those are good. You're basically like healing something so that you can push away one more time, or you're healing Eradicate so it's out of KO range, or maybe it like took some spread damage or something. So both of those are good a lot of the time. And then if Tails, each active is asleep, Eradicate can't be affected by sleep, and you could put their thing to sleep. It is just not high impact enough to really get played in the deck, I don't think. But I don't know. Maybe there's a world where you play one of these and it's like the most insane tech card you've ever seen because it like theoretically does like three different things that are hard to like realistically do. Like you'd have to play like Vaporeon Star in order to get the first effect, but you can't play that if you're playing Espeon Star, and you can't easily put the active to sleep like that. And anyways, you get the point. It has maybe some sort of fringe use in Ratlock. There's no way anything else would want to play this. I mean, come on. But maybe there's something to it. Um, and then lastly is reversal. I think most people kind of realize that this card has tangible potential in the format. It's been played by Kanten in his Bayonet list. I think Shiro played it in his Legend Box list at the Stambler Open as well. Um, like, obviously, people are aware that this card is good. And I don't really even know why I'm putting it on here because it's not really like underutilized. It's utilized by strong players in strong decks that have strong performances. But I just wanted to throw it out there. It's a card that I think should not be slept on, and we could maybe see more decks running it. Should Shiftry be running this card? Should I don't know. Should I guess Scissor already kind of does sometimes. Um, should Arcanine be running it? I mean, some of them do. I guess all the decks I'm thinking of already kind of mess around with this card, but I don't know. Crazy card, and was slept on for a long time, and now it's back to being good. So moving right along. And then lastly, the energy. Not a whole lot to say about these. Um, it's just the Holland energies, and boost energy. Um, Holland Energy FF is obviously played in Bombtar. There could be other places where you might want to play this, but I would be hard pressed to tell you one on the spot. I could see it in like Bomb Champ where you aren't affected by resistance. That could be a neat little like card to kind of help in the Bayonet matchup, for example. Um, but I feel like its applications would be pretty niche. Um, I still think like there could be potential reasons to play this, or if you could. Well, actually, no, you wouldn't want to play a Nita Queen. You don't play Fighting Energy in that deck, but um, just in like decks that play Fighting Energy or Fire Energy that aren't completely EX focused, I think you could consider playing this card, and it might do something for you. Like I could see playing like one of these in Gardevoir alongside like two Fire Energy, and maybe there's something there. Then your Gardevoir Delta can uh, not get hit for weakness in a against like Sceptile or something, where they're normally one shotting you for weakness. So I think there could be more play for this one, and then I'll look at the other two here. Hollow Energy GL. I know this is often played in decks that play Pidgeot Delta, of course, to get the Holland lock. And I think that some Nidoqueen variants back in the day used to play it for that purpose primarily. And I know Bomb Caddy lists often play it. Mine plays it. Um, the thing with this is that the first effect seems pretty good against Stantler, but oftentimes you can just play Heal Energy or Warp Energy and kind of get the same effect. And then the basic lightning. Okay, the lightning effect I think could come up for Rayler. I think there is very little downside to Rayler playing one Holland Energy GL over one Lightning Energy. I think that like the times where that will come back to bite you would be like just absurdly small because it only really comes up if you've got what's it called, the Rayquaza Pokebody active, or you're trying to attack with Minun, which both do definitely come up. But you just play so much energy, and you can just slap the GL onto a Stantler or something, and it's gonna be come up there. Um, like there's just so many things that Stantler would get KO'd by, like Sky High Claws, for example. And now you're going from getting one hit KO'd to you get to use Push Away one more time and deal a little bit more damage. Um, so I think in Railer specifically, Holland Energy GL, you could probably experiment with it. There's other things too, like you don't get two shot by disconnect anymore. Um, and or deafen. So I think that there are times where you could consider playing it in Railer for sure. Obviously, if you're playing like Mew Star, you're already changing your energy lineup. But yeah, I think specifically in Railer, but also in other decks, you could maybe take use of it or make use of it somehow. And then WP, this one's kind of the weird one of the bunch. Um, there's an argument to maybe running it in Gardevoir because it you play Psychic Energy, so you can use it to retreat or retreat a Gardevoir out of the active. And I think that some Executor lists have played this one as a way to just get free retreat and not have to pay energy to get out of like a screechy voice. Uh, but I don't know too many other applications for it. And then the one for water is kind of you kind of be hard pressed to get a good use out of that. I think um, I can't really think of like a water deck that isn't EX that would want to use that very well. But I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. Uh, the fact that you can get like immunity to like Dragon Roar or to Screechy Voice, and in a way that they can't really get around unless they power ER2 or something. Could be useful. I think it also prevents it prevents Kindle from Numel. Prevents it does not prevent push away, unfortunately. But I don't know. Like it's kind of like the mimes where like it has like a bunch of things that it does, but the things it does are like so weird and like the stuff that it helps you with is just like a huge broad range of things, and it's kind of hard to justify playing something that's like, okay, it helps me against Dragon Roar, helps me against Screechy Voice, and it helps me against Kindle. It's like, what deck are you playing that is worried about like those exact things? Um, but I don't know. Maybe it could be used in something. And then last we have here is Boost Energy. I've been playing this in my Shiftry Crawdont deck. Um, but I think like just decks that have attack cost that's like an energy type, colorless as their kind of big attack. So things like Sceptile, Gardevoir, Shiftry, that kind of thing. I think they could consider playing something like one boost energy. If you think about it, like in Dragtrode with R energy or Groudon with Magma energy, they have a similar thing where like they're playing this one energy, and it's basically like it's not really an attachment for the turn, but it's like a surprise, like aggressive attack that they're doing, and they kind of cheat that attack out for that turn only. And I think that there could be applications for that. Like, could this card be played in Gardevoir, where all of a sudden you can attack with Flame Ball with just one other energy attached, and then move that energy back to the bench. I mean, that seems like it could have utility. I haven't tried it, but I'm just throwing it out there. I play it in Shiftry because you could do that with Shiftry. You can have a seed out just using collect with a darkness energy on it, and the next turn you rare candy and then attach boost and use dirge and do 180 damage out of nowhere. So I think that there are decks that could maybe take advantage of this. Also, anything playing Sceptile could maybe put it to use where you just can use Power Revenge for basically 2 energy. So yeah, I think this card has potential homes that it could exist in that aren't just like what is it played in now, like Explode and that like Flygon React Energy deck. I don't really know what else would play it right now, but but yeah, those are I think what I have here 20 cards that I think could be played in other things, maybe, possibly. This is the wrong shift tree, but this shift tree is awesome too. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Feel free to leave any of yours or talk about applications of any of these cards, or I don't know, do whatever related things that you feel like doing. Oh, this video is 40 minutes. Epic.